Welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast with your host, Johnny Gorky. You have the power to overcome challenges and fears. Let my voice and the voice of many others show you how to transform these challenges into opportunities. To learn more about future podcasts and read episode show notes, check out my website at www.thepowerofyourvoice.com.
This is episode 23, and today's guest is my friend Shazia, the life engineer. She is an award-winning speaker and host of the podcast Feminine and Fulfilled. As a recovering people-pleasing perfectionist, Shazia Imam knows all too well the empty feeling even when you seem to have it all. After experiencing her own life falling apart after losing her son, then husband, Shazia realized it was a divine push to begin her real life. This blossomed into new love and living her deep purpose of connecting women to their best self so they can feel fulfilled, happy, and whole. Welcome to the Power of Your Voice, Shazia. So your story is incredibly powerful now that you live this beautiful, beautiful life. Though it wasn't always like that. Something completely rocked your world. How are you able to overcome this big challenge in your life?
Gosh, Johnny, you're starting right at the beginning. Right from the beginning.
This is a pretty intense question right here.
Yeah, and I love it. Let's dive right in. For me, let me give you a little bit of background. So I grew up in an Indian family. My parents are from India. I was born and raised in the U.S. And for anyone who has grown up in an Indian family or knows an Indian or an Asian family, there's a number of expectations of doing well in school and following a certain path. And so for me, I was doing a lot of checking the boxes off in my life, getting good grades, getting a good degree, getting a prestigious job at one of the largest consulting firms in the world. And then I got married because that's the next thing that you do. And I was, checking off the boxes. And the next box that I was checking off was that we got pregnant. And that in and of itself was not easy, if I'm going to be completely honest. But when it happened, I was so excited because to me, I felt like, oh my gosh, once we have this family, we have this baby and we have this family, then I'm going to have checked off everything. And what happened, what rocked my world to say the least is that when I went into the hospital to deliver, the doctors told us that our baby wouldn't survive. And when I held my son in my arms and I saw his little eyes, his little nose, his fingers, his toes, and he was so perfect. And I got to spend a few moments with him before he took his last breath. And that was quite a blessing that we even had that. I realized that something in what I'd always worked for had also taken its last breath. And we buried him the next day, and my husband, I believe, really never stepped out. He's the one who buried his son ultimately. And I feel like sometimes he never came out of the grave. And our marriage fell apart thereafter. And it was quite difficult because, for me, always having done things according to what was expected of me, what was quote unquote the right thing to do by cultural, societal standards, it was very difficult to suddenly be all alone. And that was probably the greatest struggle, if I'm completely honest, because losing my son, as difficult as that was, I believe he's in heaven. I'm a woman of faith. I believe he's in heaven. I believe he's in a better place. And I was able to deal with the grief of that. But when I found myself completely alone, I realized that that was the scariest place I had ever been. And I had wished at that time that my life would end rather than me being here, because I didn't believe that I was worth living. Because who was I without all of these external things? Who was I when I was a complete failure in what was supposed to be this white picket fence life? And I found myself in this depths of despair late at night when nobody could see me, all alone, sobbing and feeling like, why me? What happened? I did everything right. I followed all the rules. I was a good girl. I I did everything right. How did things not work out? And in that place, of course, I didn't stay there because I wouldn't be on the show today if I did. But it was in that place that I had a choice. And the choice was, do I stay in this place or do I choose something different? Do I choose to really see who am I in this place where I'm alone? Because I really wasn't alone. That was a belief that I had. And I decided to make that choice to discover myself. And I thought, all of this happened for a reason, and I won't let it go to vain. And I went on this journey to work on my self-esteem. That's exactly the words I would use. I would tell people I'm working on my self-esteem like I'm working on a diet. We're so okay to say I'm on a diet because I want to lose weight. But do we ever talk about our self-esteem or our self-worth? No, we don't. And so I would boldly say I am working on my self-esteem. And it's from there that I took a journey, which has now led to the life I'm living today. But, just taking you back to that challenge, to that moment, if I'm completely honest, it was really looking at myself in the mirror, feeling like a failure, feeling like this ultimate failure for things that I didn't even have control over. But that was the place that I was in.
Well, and losing a child has to be one of the most difficult things a person can ever go through. I used to work in physical therapy, and we had a patient who one day lost his son. His son was about 20 years old, and he told me ever since he lost his son, his family has been completely destroyed. Now, I kind of think, maybe the reason why a person might lose a child is for that adult to live their life. Like, do you feel because you lost your son, now your life has a different purpose? Your life has changed, all that kind of.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's, I really believe everything happens for us. I really genuinely believe that. And so, I grieved, of course. I mean, as a mother, it's the most painful thing. I mean, it's heart-wrenching because my wish and my desire was, of course, to raise my son here. But because I have this belief that he's in heaven and being raised, by the angels is what I think, and in this place with God and really enjoying himself, I've realized that for my son, as every parent would want, we want the best for our children. So for me, my son is in the best place. He's having the best time. He doesn't have to deal with any challenges in this world. He's in pure bliss. So as a parent, I'm grateful that my child is in the best place that he could be. And of course, I know that the loss is because I am not having the opportunity to raise him. So when I see that, yes, of course, the loss is in the physical absence, it can feel challenging, but I also believe that he's with me spiritually. I believe he looks over me, and I can feel him sometimes near me. And this is something I can feel as a parent. And so as I have been living my purpose, because my journey of my self-esteem actually became a journey of self-discovery. And then that journey turned into really understanding that my purpose is so much bigger than I ever imagined. My purpose is so much bigger than the status quo, that this had to happen for me so that I could see that, so that I could walk that path. And now I feel like, oh my gosh. And on top of that, I still get to have my son taking care of me in a way, spiritually, being there with me in this energetic way. And of course, that's hard to describe in words. It's just something that I feel. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so supported in this journey too. So having children for me doesn't look the same way as it does for everybody else. And I see the great blessing and how everything fell into place, and how I'm still in a space where my own child now is what inspires me to move forward. My son is the one who I can hear saying, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, you got this." And I'm like, yeah, okay, I do. It's a really beautiful thing. And honestly, Johnny, something I don't really talk about publicly, because sometimes I'm like, are they gonna think I'm weird that I'm saying this? And you know what? This is my truth. And this is the beauty and the blessing that I live in. And this is also why I believe that so many things happen in my life in a really open, magical, and miraculous way.
Well, it's incredible how you've been able to shift something so tragic into such a positive way. Now, for someone who might be listening to this, maybe they lost a child or they know somebody that lost a child and they can share this episode with somebody. What did you do to shift this attitude, to turn something so negative into something so positive? How are you able to do that? And what advice would you give to that person?
For me, I feel really blessed to have faith. And whatever your faith system is, I'm Muslim, but, you might be Christian, Jewish, Hindu. You may not even have a faith system. You might be atheist. Whatever it is that you believe, that's a personal thing. But when you can believe that there is something greater than you, whether it's God or the universe or source, for me, having that knowledge, that belief, that faith that God had done this for me, that God was taking care of my child, I was then able, and also for me, when I was able to see the blessing for me too, and I was able to separate the deep pain and the grief, of course, it is a loss. It is. And you will remember your child every single day. Every single day. That never goes away. And I know so many parents who have lost children. And that's something that you always get to hold on to, and believing that your child is in a better place. Whether, for me, I believe my son is in heaven, enjoying himself with all the other kids. I know for other people that I know, they believe that their child turned into an angel. For others, they believe that their child, especially for children who die, at a later age, but still sooner than their parents, when they pass away as adults, people can imagine that they have gone to the other side and they're waiting. They're waiting for their parents to come. So when we can look at life as not just in the physical, what we see in front of us, but also a knowing and a faith that there is time beyond this life. There is life beyond this life. No, do we know what it looks like? No. That's why we believe. And I am so firmly rooted in knowing that life continues on in whatever way after we pass away in body and flesh, that it's just a matter of time, this worldly time, and then you'll be reunited again with your loved ones. And so, is it difficult? Yes. And is there a purpose? Yes. And are you willing to see the bigger picture? Because there is a reason that your child went before you, and it's not a negative thing. It's that time is something greater than just looking on a clock and seeing the seconds go by. Time is energetic. Time is something we don't have control over. And yet, time is very powerful if we allow it to be. So you will be reunited. I believe that. And for now, how can you make the most of your life today, that you are alive? that you still have an opportunity to do something here, what would it be like to go all out? To me, that's the greatest tribute that you can give your child. The greatest tribute. Because they're okay. They are absolutely okay and fantastic, in fact, where they are. So they would want you to live your best life. They would want you to keep going and be who you're meant to be. And when it's time, you'll be reunited again.
It is absolutely beautiful the way you describe life, because that's the thing. It's like you lose somebody who you really love, and it can be very difficult. But when you think about it as, well, how great was my life when I had that person in my life, and now this person is in a better situation, then you realize, wow, what little time I had with that person was really a gift. So it's beautiful. And thank you so much for being so vulnerable. I really appreciate that.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask you, this is completely different, but you were once a perfectionist, and it can be really a big curse because, we start to procrastinate. How are you able to overcome this?
Oh my gosh. I'm just laughing because I'm like, I used to be a perfectionist. I probably am still a perfectionist, let's be honest. So, for me, perfectionism used to rear its ugly head in a lot of ways. I described earlier about checking off the boxes and then my life being completely shattered, right? I mean, I tried to live the perfect life and then I was shown what it's like when everything is taken away. And that was a great lesson for me, because it didn't matter how much I tried to hold things together. It didn't matter how much I was grasping at things to make them work. At that time in my life, nothing was working, quote unquote. And it was a big wake-up call for me to say, okay, I get to let go of control, because perfectionism is a controlling behavior. It's a behavior where, for me, I want everything to be just right so that I can control the outcome. I can control the way that people view me. I can control the way that I look, the way that I show up, what happens in my life. And it's a really tight energy. Like, it's almost like clenching your fist, like, oh, I'm going to hold on so tight and control this and control this and control this. Like, energetically, like, for your body to be in that, like, do it right now. Like, tighten up your fists, like clench your fists and really feel like that energy. I mean, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And so perfectionism is literally being in a clenched state all the time, trying to get every last bit perfect. So you literally can't do things because you're so clenched. I mean, if your fists are clenched and your hands are closed, how can you then grab something that nourishes you? You won't even be able to eat, right? Like, let's think about it from a physical perspective. You wouldn't be able to even take food to eat because your fists are clenched, or you won't be able to take care of yourself or do anything because our hands are so important. So I'm using this metaphor to really show how perfectionism is so debilitating. It is so debilitating. And so because I had everything yanked away from me, metaphorically, I had that choice I talked about earlier. And when I decided that I was going to take the choice to discover myself, I also distinctly remember saying to God, I literally was lying on the acupuncturist table, waiting as the needles were in my body, just lying there. You can't do anything when the needles are in. And I remember saying out loud, I said, God, I leave everything to you because I can't do this anymore. I can't control anymore. I leave this to you. You're in charge anyways. And after I said that, I just remembered feeling this immense sense of relief, and things after that just started really opening and shifting. So, I'm talking about on a really big spiritual level, but when I did that, when I allowed myself to have that, on a very tactical level, I started noticing that I was able to just let things go much more easily. I didn't have to have things perfect because my life was no longer quote unquote perfect. Who was I going to delude anyways? I mean, I just started showing up as I am. I started having really honest conversations with people. When somebody would ask me, how are you? I wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm fine. I'm great. No, if I wasn't, I was open to share. You know what? I'm working on my self-esteem. I mean, for a perfectionist who cares about image, I mean, that's heart-wrenching to have to share that out loud. And it was so empowering. So in my words, I started letting go of the perfection. In my actions, I started trying a lot of new things. I had a dreams list, you might call it a bucket list of all of these different things I wanted in my life, and I started to go after them. And one of the big things that happened is that I started a business. Oh my gosh, if you're a perfectionist, I mean, Johnny, I'm sure you can relate to this. If you're starting a business, perfectionism can stop you from the first moment because of the fear. Oh my gosh, what if I put something out there and I sound stupid? Or what are people going to think? And, you know, all of these fears creep in because the perfectionist wants success out the gate. I wanted success out the gate, and I realized, no, this is not about success. For me, life became a journey, purely a journey. And that's how I took it into my business, into my life, into my language. And so everything became an opportunity to just be. I mean, I'm imagining like a sandbox right now. Like I got to play. I got to like completely let go, you know. My fists were unclenched now, so I could play with the sand metaphorically. I mean, it was a completely different energy. And going into that space has allowed me to come so far because I'm not still debilitated by those fears. I'm not worrying about what somebody else will think because it doesn't really matter. In fact, the biggest judger of my life was my own self and can still be the biggest judger. So if I can just give myself a break, if I can just let go of trying to control everything, then wow, there's so many things I can do instead. And that's exactly what I did. And I started my business. I'm a life coach. I'm a podcast host, a Feminine and Fulfilled, which became a top 12 podcast in the world. I mean, who would have known? And it's not perfect.
Congratulations.
It's not perfect. Thank you. And it's really fantastic. So the beauty doesn't come in perfection. It comes in the journey. It comes in the putting yourself out there. It comes in the, for me, my mission is to inspire other people to step into their power, to step into their gifts. And I get to model that by doing the same thing myself. And if I had allowed perfectionism to stay, I mean, I probably would have still been in the closet crying late at night by myself.
Yeah, well, the thing is, being a perfectionist, sometimes, like I'm just thinking here, if you were to see a doctor and he's going to do surgery on you, you probably want him to be one of the best and be a perfectionist when he's doing surgery on you. But then starting a business, or especially starting a podcast, it's like a lot of people don't start a business. They don't start a podcast because they don't have the perfect microphone. They don't have the perfect computer.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's not perfect. And then they never start it. And it's, we both know it's like when we first start a podcast, your first episode probably stinks, but you do it and you learn through the experiences. Just like for some people that don't know this, my laptop got stolen when we were in San Diego. We already recorded this episode and now we're doing it again, but this time it's different. Is it better? Is it worse? We don't know. And it doesn't really matter. All it does is we're putting out great content out there. And that's the thing. No matter what happens, you just get to continue to do it. It's like just one thing. It's like I was painting my room, and when I was painting it, I thought it was perfect. I had some dripping paint, and then I went over and I made it worse. You know what? If you get a little spot, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Not worth it, because all it does is stress us out. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice to lean into the perfectionism too. I'll give you an example. So just last week I had done this masterclass on how to attract your big dream. And it was this live masterclass, and, I had used Zoom, and I had created this really nice PowerPoint to walk through, and I was on video, and then the PowerPoint was there. And I was all into it and I was so excited. There were a lot of people in attendance and I was really excited to do this class. And as I'm going through the slides, I noticed that I must have done like some sort of like annotation on the Zoom where like I must have pressed a button where like you can get the marker setting and you can maybe circle something on what you're trying to show. I don't know what happened, but there was this big mark in the middle of the screen. So now every time I went to a new slide, there was this like random mark. It was like this weird trapezoid marker shape on the center of the screen. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was a really great opportunity for me to just lean into it. And so I just spoke to it. I spoke to it to everybody watching live. And I said, oh my gosh, you guys, I see this random marker shape on the screen. And if I'm being completely honest, the perfectionist in me is like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm on this professional masterclass and I've messed up my PowerPoint. And I said, the old me would have freaked out and thought, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm unprofessional and she doesn't even know what she's talking about. And how could I do that? And then I would have spent time trying to erase it. And I just laughed. And, I asked the people watching, I was like, hey, how many perfectionists are in the room, as I'm like laughing about how this thing would have bothered me in the past. But I'm like, you guys, I'm just going to leave it. It's fine. And when I asked the question about how many perfectionists are in the room, so many people started saying me, me, me. And then we had a good laugh and we could all kind of relate. And then we carried on and it was fantastic. And what it turned out to be is that this quote unquote like mistake or an imperfection, it was literally not even an imperfection, but what the old me would have seen as an imperfection turned out to be a beautiful part of what I was teaching. So I've learned to lean into it too and not have to judge myself and be like, oh my gosh, why am I a perfectionist? It's okay, let me laugh about it. Let me meet it where it's at, laugh about it, and still carry on. Because I don't ever want it to be something that stops me from the greater mission that I have. So those little imperfections in life, like you said, just leave it. It was fine. And we carried on and then you don't even see it anymore. The example you gave, the drip on the wall, if you hadn't painted over it again, you probably would have never seen it again. And the marker thing on my PowerPoint, we didn't even see it anymore. And there's so many examples that you can look to in your life that are like that. Where can you just let the little imperfections be just there?
Well, and the thing is, being a perfectionist, it can really go into a person's personal life. Because, like, for example, my wife, she has this friend of hers. She will only date a guy who's like so tall. He has to have big muscles. He has to make six figures. He has to have a master's degree. He has to have this kind of skin tone. He has to have great mom and dad. And he has to have a brother and sister. And it's like, really? And the thing is, unfortunately, she's single because of that. It's like, sometimes we just be happy. Like, if you meet the perfect, well, not perfect person, but you meet somebody who you like, they make you happy and they have a crooked nose. Who cares? Do they make you happy?
I couldn't agree more. And it's interesting because I'm a firm believer in asking for what you want, because I do believe that's how you can manifest your biggest dreams, is to ask for what you want. And it can't be in such specificity that you literally, like this example of this woman, you clear out the opportunity for love because you've made it about just the external. I would be curious, like, what would it mean for her, all of those things that she specifically wants? What is it that she's actually desiring underneath? That's where we can get clues. What is it? Maybe she wants to feel like that she's protected if she wants somebody tall and muscular. Maybe she wants to feel protected. That's a better thing for her to really consider, rather than what it has to look like exactly. So I always recommend for people that ask for what you want 100%, but ask for it from a perspective of how you want to feel, because that is what we are looking for. And that is how you can magnetize the things that you want in your life, is when you can connect to the feeling. But she, using the example of this woman, she could ask for all those things and she could get all those things and he could be a complete a-hole.
Exactly.
You know,
That's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, like, so, so for anybody listening, for your big dream, get clear on how you want to feel and then feel that feeling. But yes, let's let go of every single thing having to be completely perfect because we don't know what perfection means. We can know how we want to feel, but we don't know on the external what perfect is or isn't. That's just our perception. It doesn't mean that that's actually perfect.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, it's like, what happens if you actually got that person, that guy or that girl who you thought was perfect? You may never find that person. That's the big problem. But then if you did find that person, you might realize, wow, I don't actually want that.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's so many cases of that too, where people get what they want. But, and I even think about myself, I'm going to really get vulnerable here. That was the story of my life. I was searching so much for that external, all those check boxes, and I got all that. But if I'm going to be completely honest with you, even before my son passed away, there was a part of me that felt like my life wasn't in alignment. I had gone for those check boxes, but I had never really known what I wanted to feel or what I wanted in my life. And I can only see it now. It used to be this nagging feeling that I had before, like just this uneasiness or like never feeling satisfied or maybe never feeling like I knew what I was supposed to do. I used to think like maybe I'm supposed to get a degree or I'm supposed to do this or do that. Like I was always in this place of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But now that I'm on the other side and I'm living my life in an aligned way, I can look back and see that nagging feeling was me actually having everything, but it wasn't what I wanted. So it's a very different paradigm to come into your life from the perspective of how do I want to feel? And searching for that or being in that. You don't even have to search for it. Feelings, you don't even have to search for. Feelings are something that you can have today. If you want to find love in your life, you can love yourself today. If you want to find, if you want to feel courageous, you can go on an adventure today. You can feel that. You can have the courage to maybe say something that's bold. And, there's a lot of things to have the feelings that you want today that require nobody or nothing else. No thing or nobody else. And that's really, really powerful. Because when you can tap into how you want to feel and you begin to feel those things, the power of what can come to you is unstoppable.
Well, the thing is just what we were just saying. I just had this thought. Maybe what it is people are looking for something in someone else that they don't have themselves. Like you're looking for someone who's strong, that can protect you, that can make a lot of money. Maybe you need to ask yourself a better question. What can I do to get that? Get that yourself. Love yourself. Be secure with yourself.
Completely. I mean, when we're talking about love, and I am not a love expert, although I have found my soulmate and I've read way too many books about love, but what I will say is that time and time again, what I've read and what I've seen and what I've experienced myself is that love will come. The thing that you deeply want will come when you live it yourself, when you love yourself. And just like you said, if you want security, have that for yourself. When we're waiting for somebody to fulfill something or something to fulfill something within us, we will never be satisfied. It just doesn't work like that. And you hear these stories about people, who get all the money, they get all the fame, they get everything, and then they realize they're so unhappy. They got all the things, but they're so unhappy. And so why not go for the happiness? Why not go for the love? Why not go for all of the things that you want to feel now? Feel it now. Go for it now rather than waiting for something or someone else to bring it to you, because you'll just constantly be disappointed.
Well, I was just thinking too, it's like we didn't go into this. This is very important, especially for people in a relationship. So after, your son, he passed away, your husband, who you thought, your relationship would continue,
Mm-hmm.
you guys separated. How are you able to get through that? Because that had to be a tough situation to go through, but you went through that so you could find the love that you have now. How did that all go together?
Oh my gosh. I mean, at the time, I was devastated. I was devastated. I did everything I could to save my marriage. Everything. That's why I've read a lot of books on marriage, on love, on communication. I mean, if I could get a degree from all the books I read, I would have like a PhD by now, because I did everything. I talked to all the experts. I read all the books. I tried every single thing I could under the sun, because I believed that it was the last semblance of me holding on to this image that I'd so wanted to have. And at that point, our marriage was completely loveless. And I don't say this in a way to blame my former husband in any way. I know that he was in a lot of pain, and he was on his own journey, and our chapter together was coming to an end, and he was ready, but I wasn't. So with everything in my life, God always shows me the way. And a lot of times I like to go kicking and screaming. And so for me, as much as I tried and tried and tried, no, the marriage did not work out. And when it finally ended, it took several years. I gave it a really good fight. When it ended, I remember that when my former husband walked out the door, I thought that I would be a wreck. But I felt this sense of freedom. I felt like I could breathe. And again, it wasn't about him. We're still really good friends to this day. He's the father of my child. But I felt like I could breathe because I wasn't clenching my fists anymore. Going back to that analogy, I wasn't trying to hold on to something that really wasn't a fit. He knew that, and deep down inside, I knew that too, but I wasn't ready to accept it until it happened. And so when he walked out the door, I could breathe, and I went on a journey where I found what it meant to love myself, to deeply love myself. And that meant doing the things I wanted to do. That meant learning about the things I wanted to do. And it was a beautiful journey, because in the end, when I went on this journey and I found the things I love to do, and I traveled, and I really cultivated things within me that I'd never done before, like doing things by myself, and having a good time, I remember that time period when I was single was so freeing, that by the time I met my now husband and my soulmate, his name's Antonio, he still says to this day, the thing that attracted me most to you was your energy. And I couldn't agree more. I was free. I had this magnetic energy that's still there now, where people are just like, I want to just talk to you, Shazia. I want to hang out with you. I want to be friends with you. And I'm like, I know, like, I love myself too. I just ended up having such confidence after having such low self-worth that attracted not just my soulmate, not just Antonio. It attracted a lot of money into my life. It attracted success in my business. It attracted more beauty. People tell me now how beautiful I am. I literally look the same, but it's because something is emanating from me. So it's ironic that all of the things that I had so desperately wanted to check off the box before, but it was for the purposes of checking off a box, how that didn't work out for me. But when I started living my life for myself, being my own person, discovering what I want, and being all of me, that everything came flooding to me. And I didn't ask for it. Of course, I love it. I love the life I'm in right now. And it's come effortlessly because I have given to myself in the deepest way. I love myself, I nurture myself, and of course that translates into the people around me as well. But I give to myself first and foremost, unapologetically, because I know the benefit it has on me, and I am just as important as the next person. And then, of course, I see how it benefits everybody around me too. So it's a win-win, and it's easy.
Yeah, well, the beautiful thing is when we think about it, it's like everything you went through your life, the good, the bad, however you want to say it, you went through it so you could be who you are. And yes, you have this amazing positive energy. It's like I remember one day I was listening to your podcast in the kitchen, and my wife's like, "Who is that lady? I love her voice." It's like, when people listen to you, you have that really soothing, like, voice, and it's very energetic. People can really feel it. It's very authentic.
Thank you. I really received that. And I love that you use the word authentic because, people before used to use the word for me as snobby or guarded. That was the time that, I keep alluding back to before I really became my whole self. I used to throw up such an image that I thought I was projecting something in the world and nobody knew. Like, here I was, Miss Perfect, quote unquote. But everybody knows, everybody can feel the energy. And now I'm totally myself. I mean, I just show up. If somebody asks me how I'm doing, I'm still completely honest with them. I love to talk about potty humor. I have a whole podcast episode called Fart. And it's all about farting and poop and potty humor. And it's hilarious. And I just love that I can accept myself for these quirks I have, for the depth that I have too, and for the energy and the passion I have for people to really be their whole selves. And of course, my greatest passion is for women to have that, because I really believe that when a woman is her whole self, that is her purpose. And so I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I mean, if this is what I get to do in the world, have great conversations with people like you, Johnny, and inspire others to step into their power and have a beautiful life with the people that I love, I mean, yes, please.
Yeah, well, and the thing is confidence. I'm thinking of confidence because, like, as a guy, I think, when a woman is very confident, it's a sexy trait. Like my wife, she's very confident in herself. And I would think most women would feel the same thing. If a guy is very confident, he knows who he is, that's sexy. That's attractive. Mm-hmm. People like that.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I'm thinking back to that other woman that you were describing earlier who wants like this 6 foot, whatever looking man. And I'm like, who's actually really sexy is Kevin Hart. And Kevin Hart is very short, but he is so confident. And I imagine that, probably before he got famous, maybe women, it was difficult to maybe get women or maybe not because he's always been confident. I don't know how he was before. But to me, he epitomizes a man who is confident. And of course, how can you not be attracted to that? How can, and it doesn't even have to be romantic, right? I mean, even Johnny, just different people that I meet, men or women, when a person is confident, I am attracted to them. I want to be near them. I want to be in their presence.
Yes.
I mean, it is so literally, it's attractive. And I use the word attractive in terms of the physical, but also attracting something magnetically. Confidence is attractive. And it's such a good gift to give to yourself. And I know, I've been on the other side too, so I know it's not just like a flip of the switch to be confident, and it's also not difficult to find either. You get to be you. It's becoming confident in who you are innately instead of trying to be something else. And gosh, isn't that attractive? Because don't you want to just feel like at relief with yourself and at ease and at peace? I mean, that's the best feeling ever.
Well, I think it all really goes down to doing something that you're passionate about, because if you have no passion in anything that you do, how can you be really confident in it?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't love what you do, it's kind of hard to have any confidence in what you're doing.
Definitely, definitely. And, doing what you love doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, go quit your job today and, go climb the mountains of, I don't know, Kilimanjaro and find yourself. I mean, sometimes I feel like it can sound like that. I mean, doing what you love can be allowing yourself to eat that ice cream cone with your favorite flavor of ice cream and just enjoying it. Oh my gosh. Like that is decadent because so often we stop ourselves from enjoying, or it might be catching up with somebody that you love, an old friend, and spending time with them, or having a hobby that really lights you up. Start somewhere with what you love, because the more that you do things that you love, you will absolutely feel more confident. And then that confidence will grow for you to start stepping into the bigger and the bigger and the bigger things. This whole idea of like overnight success or leaving everything to find yourself, I mean, I'm just not a subscriber to that. I'm a subscriber of getting to the feeling. And the feeling doesn't have to be, again, something drastic or something like so big and bold, like you have to jump off a cliff. It can be something really simple that allows you to feel like a kid again, to feel pleasure, to feel bliss, to feel adventure, to feel fun, to feel love. Whatever it is, find it, even if it's just the smallest thing. And if it's an ice cream cone, then let me know what flavor is your favorite ice cream.
So speaking of like finding yourself in souls, if you were to take the biggest stage, what would you say on that stage?
Oh my gosh. Today, I would say wholeness is your purpose. And something else is coming to me, so I'm just going to say it. I would say go for it. Like, go for it. Go for it. And you know what the it is. You know what it is. And again, if you're a bit hesitant, start small, but take one step towards it. But go for it. Stop the hemming and the hawing and the waiting and the wanting everything to align and everything has to be perfect. And I don't know, who am I? I mean, who are you not? Like, why not you? When you start saying why me, change it to why not me? So yes, I would say that, go for it. And I would want to grab every person by their cheeks, like eye to eye, taking them by, I'm literally imagining looking you in your eye, taking you by the cheeks and saying to you, go for it. You got this, go for it. And trust that you will be supported, because you will.
Well, like when you were on stage giving a presentation, I have this little thing on your PowerPoint presentation, and some people would have oh, maybe I just need to get off the stage, I shouldn't give this presentation. But you found a way to go through it. You laughed, you were being authentic, because people really got to see you. It's like, oh, she made a mistake, maybe she didn't make a mistake, maybe she did this on accident just so people could see who you really, really are. So it's like, yeah, just do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just have to find another way to do it.
Absolutely. Just lean into it, go for it. You'll never know until you try. And the biggest regret of people, and there was a study done by this hospice nurse where she interviewed over 1,000 patients right before they died, because that was the work she was doing. She was caring for these people who were really sick and they were going to die. And she asked them, what's your greatest regret? And the number one thing that they said that they regretted was not living their own life, or the life that they were meant to, but basically just doing all the motions and not actually living their life. So I don't want anybody to be on their deathbed like that. Sometimes I think today, when I'm about to make a decision on something, and a part of me is like, well, I don't know, time, resources. And, I start thinking, is this practical? And I mean, I'm an engineer by trade, so practicality is a big part of who I am. But I have learned that it doesn't serve me. And so the question I ask now is, if I were on my deathbed, would I regret moving forward with this or not moving forward with this. And that gives me a lot of clarity. It gives me a lot of clarity beyond just what's in my narrow frame of reference today. Because, Johnny, I don't want to live with any regret. I don't want to die with any regret. And I spent enough of my life living somebody else's life that I had, put in my mind was the right life. But now I'm living my life. And that means I get to live all of it. And so does every single person listening right now.
Well, and it's so important to think about. It's like, I didn't have this in my family, but I know for some people, it's like, your mom and dad are doctors and your brother, your sister, everyone in your family is a doctor. So it's like you have to go to school to become a doctor, because if you don't, you're a disappointment to the family. But then maybe you want to be a comedian. Maybe you want to be the world's most funniest comedian, the most popular one. If you're doing something to please somebody else, you're not really going to be happy. You're not, and that will be a regret when you die. Well, before a person dies, because like they didn't really do things that they wanted to do. They only did it because everybody expected them to do it. They're not really being true to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we are privileged enough to live in a time and a place where we can have these conversations. I don't take that lightly, Johnny, because there are still plenty of people in the world who can't have these conversations because they are surviving. But for you and me and for most of us, especially in the US or in the developed world, it's a gift that you don't have to worry about your safety or your survival or putting food on the table. And when I mean putting food on the table, like literally not dying of starvation, I'm not talking about, not being able to afford certain groceries. I'm talking about literally not being able to eat. And that privilege is a gift. And it's really important to me that if I have been blessed with this privilege, then I'm going to make the most of it. I can't allow fears that really aren't true to dictate my life, because I'm not in a fight or flight mode. I'm not in a survival mode. I have an opportunity to look at what's next in my life. How can I be the best person who I am? Because if I wasn't meant to be at my next level or at my purposeful level, then my life would have looked really different. Maybe my life would have been trying to make the next meal happen, and it's not. So I really take this as a trust that I've been given to live my best life too. It goes beyond me. This is when we really start thinking about service, is really seeing yourself as the opportunity to serve. You living your purpose is you serving. You being who you're meant to be is you really being the most compassionate human being you could ever be, because you have all of these gifts that could support so many others in ways you can't even imagine.
Well, one of the biggest ways that we can serve others is just doing what we're doing now, having this conversation and sharing our stories with other people. Because maybe somebody listens to this episode, or they go on your podcast and listen to a few of yours as well, and they start building confidence, or they believe something that they can do that they didn't think they could do otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's, again, what you do, it doesn't have to be, having to become like Oprah Winfrey or becoming the president or, something radically huge. And maybe it is. And if it is, like, go for it. I'm still going to say go for it. And just like you said, Johnny, these conversations, being able to answer a question of how are you authentically is a gift. That's a gift that you're giving by saying, I exist in this world. I will be seen and I will see you. We live in a world where we don't even notice people anymore. So giving the opportunity for people to be a part of your life, your real authentic life, is a gift. Sharing with others. I mean, there's so many ways. I mean, it could go on and on and on. And so I'll just say that it's so important to be you and to share that with the world.
Yeah, well, and it all goes with having real conversations. Like, one thing, you'll be at the grocery store and, hey, how you doing? Fine. do you really want to live a life where you just fine? And of course, this is something we talked through the amazing program that we both went through, Hardcore Leadership. But it's like, yeah, if you're just fine, you're not really living your life. You want to live, I'm great. Everybody should feel that way. Every day you should be living great. And if you're not, why are you not?
Yes. I did a whole episode called Fine. And I talked about exactly what you're saying, Johnny. How often we say, I'm fine. It's fine. Fine should just be replaced with mediocre. Because that's what the word fine has become. It's become mediocrity. So if someone asks you, how are you? And you say, fine. Just say, I'm mediocre. Like, let's just be honest. What would it be like? You would, of course, wouldn't want to say mediocre. But don't subscribe to mediocrity in your life. Don't just be fine. Live, thrive, be alive. I mean, again, we have this gift of life. Go live it. Every last ounce of it. Fine is, I don't even know who fine is for. I don't even know who came up with that, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's like on a scale of like 0, life just sucks, and 10, life is the best thing ever. That's like being probably like a 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Why would you want to live the life where, oh, my kids are fine, my marriage, it's fine?
Yeah. Yeah, and I can imagine someone saying, well, I just say that because that's, what you're supposed to say, and I actually do like XYZ. Well, then say it. Then say great. My kids are fantastic. My marriage, oh my gosh, I love my partner so much. I mean, say it, because it doesn't, vulnerability and being authentic doesn't have to always be, what I used to believe was like crying. I didn't understand vulnerability for a long time because I'm like, I don't want to cry all the time. But that's not what vulnerability is. It's about sharing your authentic truth. It's just as inspiring to hear a challenge as it is to hear somebody rocking it. Both things are great. Fine is blah. So share your reality, share it, and see what conversations open up. See where you can make those connections. I mean, Johnny, you're so good at that, connecting with complete strangers.
Thank you.
And I imagine it feels great.
Oh, absolutely. It really does. Well, it's like, think of people who you really admire, like maybe Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask Oprah, how are you? Is she going to say fine? Of course not.
She's not.
So we're speaking about life stuff. So 3 choices in life. And this is something, they can do nothing. So let me ask this whole question again. You mentioned that people have 3 choices in life. They can do nothing, try one thing here and there, and they can take that leap. I take it that most people listen to this episode want to take that leap, living the life that they've always wanted to. How do you do that?
Oh my gosh. You take the leap, you go for it. You go for it. If you're listening and you're like, I'm ready to take the leap, then you know what it is. I don't have to tell you more than that. Go for it. Take the first step. I don't have a secret formula for you. And I know people want that. Like, tell me the one thing. The one thing is, take the next step. You know what it is. So stop pretending. Stop pretending that you don't know, because you know. And imagine your most powerful self. What would he or she take as the next step, the first step? And do
action.
Action, inspired action, yeah.
Well, because, for example, we have podcasts. For anyone who's listened to this, you maybe want to write a book, maybe you want to start a podcast. You could read hundreds and hundreds of books. But if you don't take action, it really doesn't matter. So, Shazia, for anyone who's listening right now, how can they contact you online through social media and everything?
Oh my gosh, there's so many ways. So first of all, I have a gift for everybody listening, because I love to give out gifts.
Yeah.
And I know that the number one thing I hear from my clients and from people who reach out is that they're like, I don't have time to take a step. I don't have time to even think about my dream. And I'm like, okay, I got you. So I have a gift, the 10 Secrets to More Time. And these are all my secrets. And I have an abundance of time in my life. I know that's weird to be the person who's not saying, I'm so busy. No, I'm not. I actually have an abundance of time and I'm able to do a lot of things. So you can grab my 10 secrets to more time at thelifeengineer.com/time. That's also my website. You can take a look around, and you can find me on my podcast at Feminine and Fulfilled. That's on places everywhere where you can hear a podcast. And then I'm also on Facebook at Shazia, ShaziaTle, as in the Life Engineer. And then I'm also on Instagram at the Life Engineer. So that's everything, Johnny.
Thank
And
you.
I would love to hear from your listeners.
Thank you so much, Shazia. I love you. Thank you so much for being on the Power of Your Voice podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing your voice, Johnny, and giving all of us the power to use our voice.
You're welcome. Johnny here. Thank you for listening to the Power of Your Voice podcast. I'd love to get your feedback on this episode and how it impacted you. If someone in your life could benefit from this episode, share it with them. Check out thepowerofyourvoice.com to read show notes, leave a comment on the blog page, and to stay updated on all future episodes, subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review. Thank you for your love and support.